Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today I'm going to be doing not another top 10 but a top 15 here. I'm going to be doing my top 15 horror movie sequels.
Because let's face it baby, these days you gotta have a sequel.
Now the reason I'm doing 15 is because there were just too many and there were some recent ones as well. So I just wanted to throw them in there to make it a bit more of a bulkier and fun video. So yeah, little 5 more bonus movies than usual there. I do a lot of top 10s on this channel. But yeah, we're going for the top 15 here. Now a lot of people seem to think that sequels are never as good as the original or, can never live up to expectations. And whilst that is the case a lot of the time, there are some sequels out there that sometimes surpass the original. But even if they don't surpass the original, these ones in this list will either be as fun or I just enjoy them as much, even if they're not as good as the original. But some of them on here are actually better than the original as well. So basically, it's just the top 15 favourite horror sequels. Can't be much more simpler than that, can it? And just a heads up, guys, I'm just doing one movie per franchise here, just so the video doesn't get a little bit too boring, naming 5 movies from the same franchise. So, just a heads up there. Now, a lot of you may not agree with some of my picks, but it is just my personal list. So let's get into it now with number 15. Now, number 15, I did say was going to be some more recent ones on this list, but that is Terrifier 3. I have absolutely fell in love with Damien Leone's franchise. It's just my type of movie. I love slasher films. I love killer clown movies. And this one just goes together so well for me. With it being ultra-violent as well. Violence, should I say. It just really makes it pop on screen. Now, this one all takes place at Christmas, which is that gives that added fun element. Having such a joyful time with such a dark, sinister demon like Art the Clown roaming around. Now, the first movie pretty much cements itself and says, look, this is our horror icon. This is what we're going to be doing with this character. The second one is much more story driven, and Damien Leone adds even more story elements to this one, while finding the roots of the original as well and giving it a perfect little balance there. But when I went to cinema to watch this, I had so much fun. People in the cinema were laughing and, being grossed out. It was just a fun time. I love Art the Clown. He is growing to be one of my favorite horror movie villains of all time. I just love how David Howard Thornton brings this character to life with all the mannerisms, the personality without even speaking. But this one might actually go up on the list for me, especially when we get Terrifier 4 and the story starts to make sense a little bit there. This one goes to even more extremes than the first 2 movies. And I like how we do have Vicky here, who's another killer protagonist that was I didn't see coming, which adds a little bit more to this sequel as well. So yeah, I had such a fun time with this. It's my favourite Terrifier movie out of the 3. A £2 million budget is mind-blowing considering how good this movie looks. And I'm so happy that it's done so well at the box office. It's a real success story. And Terrifier 3, I can't wait to rewatch it again when I grab the 4K. So in 15 is Terrifier 3. Next up we have The Evil Dead 2. Now Sam Raimi was squeezing everything he could out of the budget that he had for the original Evil Dead. Now, I know a lot of people think that is a classic horror movie, and it is. I love it to death. I'm not quite there with the original Evil Dead. I think it's a good film, nothing much more than that. However, I much prefer The Evil Dead 2, I must say. I think Sam Raimi just done what he did with the original on a much more bigger budget, and it works. Now, I am not discarding his work for the first movie. It's unbelievable what he got out of that with that budget. Proper guerrilla filmmaking there, proper indie flick that just grew and grew in popularity. It's genius what he done. But I just have much more fun with this Evil Dead 2. I think Ash, the main protagonist, doesn't really do much in the first movie, but this is where he became popular and his stardom started to increase, and the character really comes into his own. He's got much more personality in this. Bruce Campbell does a much better job with the character. You can latch yourself onto him and root for him in this one way more than you can in the first movie, in my opinion. I think there's some great demon design here. Henrietta, who lives in the basement, was terrifying, I thought. We've got chainsaws on hands. We've got possessed hands. One of the funniest moments in the entire Evil Dead franchise is where Ash is getting flipped around by that hand. It's just hilarious to me. And yeah, I just love all the gore and carnage on screen as well. So yeah, I just think this is a more improved effort. A lot of people think, why is it called Evil Dead 2? It's pretty much the same movie as the first, just redone a little bit more there. But yeah, it's called Evil Dead 2, and it is a sequel, really. And I think it's fantastic. So Evil Dead 2 has to be in this list. Next up, we have The Conjuring 2. Now, the first movie is a really scary film. James Wan directed that brilliantly. And this one, whilst not being as scary, although there are scary moments in it, I think this is a more better story. I think it's just more relatable being from the UK, and this one is all about the Enfield haunting, where the Warrens go and investigate this family this mother who's got like 4 kids, and they're seeing terrifying visions in the house and stuff. And it's just them basically trying to get to the bottom of it and what is causing these demonic entities to infest this house, really. But you couldn't mistake this movie for being like a black and white film at times. I think it really captures that visual style of all them older haunted house movies. But of course it's in colour, but the filters that it uses just seems to be a throwback to all them old school horror flicks, and I think that really mixes well on screen. It looks fantastic, visually stunning movie, and there are some great demons in this film as well. Obviously the first appearance of the nun Valak in this one, you got the Crooked Man, so many awesome moments. I just think it's a really, really good story, and one that had me glued to the screen. I had a great cinema experience with this one, and for me, yes, it's marginally better than the original, just because it has better story, in my opinion. I just prefer this story about this house compared to the first one, really. But the first one is still an amazing movie. And to me, it's the best movie in the entire Conjuring franchise. I know we've had lots of spin-offs like Annabelle and stuff, but The Conjuring 2 will probably be number 1 if I ranked all of them films. So that is The Conjuring 2. Next up, we have Gremlins 2. Yes, another horror comedy thrown in here, but oh well. Look, Gremlins is a movie beloved by lots of people all around the world. They all watch it at Christmas time and stuff. It is a fun movie. But I've always just preferred Gremlins 2. I know I might be in the minority there, but as a kid, I watched this one a hell of a lot more than the original. Now, granted, it's been a while since I revisited both of these films, but I just have fond memories of this one. The fact that the Gremlins are taking over a skyscraper, you know, compared to the little neighborhood, which is still a fun setting, this skyscraper is just got so many different floors and stuff where all wacky things are taking place. Like, we've got mad scientists in a laboratory on one floor, and then we've got like a cinema on the other floor where Hulk Hogan's talking through the third wall in it. We've got an art floor where our main protagonist from the first movie, of course, he works there, and the Gremlins are basically just wreaking havoc because some water has been spilt on Gizmo once again here. And I just think it's hilarious. I really do. I have such a fun time. So many wacky characters. The Gremlins are amped up to 100 here. You know, some of them are even presenting shows and stuff because it's kind of like a TV station, this skyscraper, but it's got all these other weird shit going in there as well. And yes, the Gremlins are just basically running amok. It's such a fun time. I love it. It really is entertainment amped up to 100. So Gremlins 2 has to be in here for me too. Next up, we have A Quiet Place Part 2, following on the journey of Emily Blunt's family from the first film. And it is a lot of the same thing here, but I was so invested in this family in the first movie that I really wanted to continue the story with this one and see where they were going. And I gotta say, this is one of the greatest cinema experiences I have ever had in my life. Thank you to my audience who kept quiet during the whole film. You could hear a pin drop in that cinema because everyone just felt like they were there for the same thing, you know, to go on this journey of this world where you can't make a noise or these creatures will come and tear you to shreds. But it just enhanced the experience for me. I watched this on iSense, and yeah, even when there is a noise coming out of nowhere, man, you jump out your seat, and that happened quite a few times there. But having some good characters in there as well, like Cillian Murphy thrown into the mix and stuff, it just made this a better experience for me than the first movie. I definitely prefer this one, and I love the fact that we get like a sort of mini prequel at the start of the movie showing day one of how this all happened and how this all came about. It's one of the greatest sequences I've seen like this decade in horror. I thought it was fantastic to watch that and see these creatures just basically taking over this little town and Emily Blunt trying to escape with her family. But it has a very abrupt ending, and a lot of people complained about that, but I actually really love that ending, and it just shows that the kids are starting to come into their own a little bit now and really growing into this world that they are unfortunately in. And I really do hope that we get a part 3. I know we got A Quiet Place day one, which was awesome, I thought. Really, really good movie. But I really want to see the continuation of this family and where they go next in A Quiet Place Part 3. So let's hope that is the next movie in this franchise. So that is A Quiet Place Part 2. Next up, we do have Psycho 2, a movie I hardly knew anything about going in. I thought, really, a sequel to one of the greatest horror movies of all time. How good can it be? We all know what happened with The Exorcist 2. But when I went into this, I was actually really surprised. I was gobsmacked, in fact, how much I enjoyed this movie. This one really does do its own thing with the story and not try and copy and paste the first film. This sees Norman Bates getting out of prison so many years later, 22 years later, I believe, and he has been fully rehabilitated, or so the story tries to tell us. But once he gets out, these murders start to occur around the Bates Motel, and people starting to blame Norman again. But is it really him, or is there someone in the background doing this? Because he is a very confused individual. He's mentally can't comprehend what's going on. And I just think that's a really good character story of this character, you know, to take him to another part of his life, really, after some of the heinous crimes that he did in the first movie. But yeah, I'm just so glad that they went down a different path. Some of the best sequels do this, don't they? They do something totally different. And this is a really, really cool murder mystery movie. So yeah, if you haven't seen Psycho 2 and you love the first, and you're kind of shaking up whether to go into this one, I would definitely give it a go, because it's one of the most underrated horror movies I've ever seen. So that is Psycho 2. Next up, we do have Friday the 13th, Part 3. Now, I'm in the middle of a rewatch with this, and I really did love Jason Lives the first time I watched these movies. So this could easily change upon rewatch on many more franchise watches. You know, Part 3 at the minute, though, is probably my favourite. And I hold a lot of nostalgia for this movie as well, because I used to watch it constantly on VHS as a kid. But what I love about this one is that we have kind of a different type of setting here. Okay, it's all in the camp and stuff, but we've got this barn that's kind of attached to the camp and stuff. And it feels like that's where Jason is kind of living on the sly there, away from these campers. And a lot of the murders do occur in that building. But my main positive with this movie compared to the first two movies is that the final girl, Chrissy, in this movie is the best final girl by a mile. It feels like there's a little bit of a story there. And this location that it takes place in, like I mentioned before, with the barn and stuff, Chrissy has been here before and actually visited Jason when she was a kid, because this guy, this disfigured guy, actually came up to her in the forest and tried to kill her. So, unbeknownst to her, that is actually Jason. So there is a little bit of a revenge tale going on in Friday the 13th Part 3. When she comes back here, Jason is back. And it's up to her to basically take him out. And it ensues a great third act as well. But there's so many good killings in this movie. Richard Brooker is awesome as Jason. The part where he shoots that arrow across the lake is fantastic. We've also got an eye-popping scene in here. There's some great kills in Friday the 13th Part 3. And I do think the characters in this movie are so much better than the first and second film. The bunch of characters that we get here. A lot of people hate Shelley, but I think he's one of the best characters in the franchise. They're just fun characters to be around. There is some horror tropes thrown in there and stuff. And, you know, it's just cheesy as hell. But Friday the 13th Part 3, I have a lot of fun with it. I really do. There's a lot to like here. And I would love to watch this in 3D, because it was made for 3D and I've never actually seen it in 3D. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 3, for now, is the Friday the 13th pick in this video. Number 8 is going to be Alien Romulus. Now, I might get a lot of hate for this, guys, because I see so many mixed views on this movie. And some people might be shouting, how can you put Alien Romulus in it over Aliens? Well, Aliens, by far, is the best movie in the franchise. I just feel a bit weird putting it in here because I don't really consider it to be a fully fledged horror movie. I think it's more of an action movie with horror elements. But I do think Fede Alvarez brought the horror back in Alien Romulus. Now, I absolutely adored this movie at the cinema. I went to see it again a couple of days later and I loved it even more. So yeah, I never really go to see a movie twice, but this one I did. I loved it so much. It is probably my favorite horror movie of 2024. Maybe Nosferatu will change that, who knows? But right now, this is my favorite horror movie of the year. I absolutely loved it. I enjoyed the characters a lot more the second time as well. This is one of the many complaints about the movie, but I grew to latch onto them a little bit more. I think the fact that we bring the elements of Alien and Aliens and mash them together there really works. The face huggers in this are terrifying. Best use of the face huggers, bar the dinner scene in the first movie. Best use of the face huggers in the franchise by a mile. And also a unbelievable third act that a lot of people were kind of mixed on, but I absolutely loved the final 10 minutes of this movie. It brought pure horror and terror to the franchise again, and I was just in my seat going, holy shit, what the hell is going on here? Fede Alvarez done a fantastic job of this movie, in my opinion. He captured the world brilliantly. Everything looks stunning. I can't wait to watch it again when I get it on 4K. Yes, there are some fan service moments in here that may feel a little bit too much for me. I kind of disagree with that. I actually like some of the fan service moments in here, although there is one line of dialogue that felt a little bit too much. And yes, a character coming back with a CGI face didn't work too well. But these are mini negatives for me. I love this movie, and I had to put it in here. I know it's a new release, and this is my top 15 sequels ever, but I can't ignore the fact that I just love this film to death. So yeah, Alien Romulus is number 8. Number 7 is going to be Hostel 2. I have always loved this movie, despite what others think about this franchise. Some people say it's a bit too much, it's pathetic, it's too much gore, it's gore for gore's sake. But no, I really do like both Hostel movies. And the third one, for a straight-to-VOD movie, is pretty good as well. But Hostel 2 really does add so much more lore to this series and explain a lot more of how it goes and what the process is for these characters who are basically buying people and human trafficking them to torture and kill them. Now, instead of having a lot of male protagonists from the first movie, this time we focus on a bunch of female protagonists. Now, that is an easy switch up to do, and a lazy switch up, some people may say, but it does so much more than that. Okay, we get the female protagonist this time, but also we get to see from the point of view of these people who are basically bidding on these girls. We get to see all that and how they react, what they do in their daily lives, how they're bidding on them, how the whole hunting club works, and all these different type of antagonist characters are bidding on other people and stuff. And later on in the movie, when we get to the third act, we kind of meet the people who run this hunting club and stuff. So it's not just a copy and paste movie, although some of it is. There's so much more story and depth and lore added into this one. And so many great violent moments as well. Oh, that moment where that woman is hanged upside down and the woman is just slashing at her with the sword and bathing in her blood. My God, it just gets me every single time. So yeah, Hostel 2 is a pretty solid sequel, and one that could have been so lazy with no attempt whatsoever, because it was riding high on the torture porn, that's what people like to call it, train. But no, I think a lot of thought went into this one. I think it's a great sequel. That is Hostel Part 2. Next up, we have Scream 4. Yes, not many people will say that this is their favourite sequel from the franchise, but for me, I just have a lot of fun with this movie. I have a lot of fun with the whole franchise, but this one, just a little bit more. It's got a crazy opening sequence. I will say it's not my favourite opening sequence of these movies, but it's still trying to do something a little bit different there, I suppose. But it's just another fun ride through Woodsboro. And this time we see Neve Campbell having to protect her niece because Ghostface is out there and her niece has come to town. And she's basically sort of taking it to the next level of showing her how to deal with this Ghostface character and stuff and really growing into her own. But we also have Gail back and stuff, you know, the original cast are all here. But what I love about this movie, no spoilers or anything, the most is the reveal of one of the killers here. And I didn't see it coming, but this killer is so sadistic, so sinister, and you're like, yeah, that's one of my favorite Ghostface killers in the entire franchise. But there's some really good kills in here as well. There's one moment where the mother is rushing home to her son because Ghostface is taunting her on the phone, saying, oh, your son's going to be killed very, very soon. And then she meets the same fate. We have my favorite Ghostface quote of all time in this one, where he's on the phone and he says, I can put you in the hospital if you want, in the fucking morgue. I love that scene. It kills me every single time. Yeah, it's just a very fast-paced, exhilarating Scream movie. I've always loved it, always will. I got to put it in here as well. So yeah, not too many people's favourite, but it's definitely mine. Next up, we have Saw 2. Now, my teenage mind worked totally different back then than what it does now. I was amazed by the original Saw movie, and when they announced Saw 2, I kind of had the same feelings like I did with Hostel 2, where I thought, yeah, this is just going to be a cash grab. I kind of might leave it. Now, if that was happening now, I'd be there day one, but I was kind of a little bit different as a teenager when it came to movies and stuff. But so many people told me that this movie was great, and I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And my God, my mind was absolutely blown by this sequel. Now, I like the concept that it all takes place in this house. We've got this cop who's searching for his son at the same time, and his son is in this house with all these characters who have to face these deadly games one after the other. And we learn more about the characters as the movie goes on. A little bit different to the first movie with just the two guys in the bathroom. You can tell there's a little bit more budget here. But some of the traps they have to face are really toe-curling as well. The moment where Amanda is thrown in that pit of needles. We've got the guy Obi who has to climb through the oven, and midway through it's turned on and stuff, and he has to hurry up to get this number off the back of his head and stuff. And yeah, it really is a great follow-up. But the end of the movie was another one that had my jaw on the floor, and it was the last thing I remember after watching it for the first time. I was just like, holy shit, what a movie that was. And I ended up watching this so many times on DVD back in the day. I was just amazed by it, and I was like, how did they pull the same trick twice there? But yeah, it's just such a fun time. Great traps, great twist, great story. Absolutely love Saw 2. And Saw 10 is another great sequel in this franchise that's had so many, but I just prefer Saw 2 the most. So that is Saw 2. Coming up next is going to be Halloween 2. Yeah, it's not Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, although I love that movie. Just saying. But Halloween 2 from 1980, yes. Now, this is a follow-up to the original, obviously, but it takes place on the same night. We've got Michael Myers going to the hospital to find Laurie Strode after a little bit of carnage that he causes in the town of Haddonfield at the start, which I think's awesome, by the way, just following Michael Myers around Haddonfield and stuff. But when we get to the hospital, it's a great location for a horror movie to take place in. Hospitals are always creepy. No one really wants to be in hospitals. When you got Michael Myers lurking around, it just makes it even worse, doesn't it? Now, there is a revelation in this movie about Michael and Laurie that a lot of people don't like. I think it enhances the characters. I think it's a welcome addition and makes more sense for Michael to sort of be going after her. A lot of people like the simplicity of Michael and that why like there's no point. He just does what he does because, well, I don't know. I think it made it feel like a lot more sense was being added there. Some great kills in this movie, of course. You know, there's like this boiling bathtub scene. I was like, oh my God, that shit must hurt. Donald Pleasance, once again, great in this movie. He's my favorite character in the franchise, and he's doing some of his best stuff here. a great third act once again. I love this movie. I think it's fantastic and a great movie to do a double bill with along with the first film. So that is Halloween 2. Next up, we got Child's Play 2. Now, the original movie was more of a suspense film where you're like, is this kid lying about this doll? Is it really coming alive and killing people and stuff? And we do find out in the middle of the movie that Andy was actually telling the truth. This one sees Andy in a foster home, and Chucky is back and tries to track him down and infiltrate this foster home where he's trying to start his new life, basically. But it takes a while for the first movie to get going, but on this one, you know, the studio just know what they had with the character, and Chucky is at it from the off. He's slicing and dicing straight away. I think the first kill might be about 5 minutes in, where, you know, Chucky is basically brought back to life. And then next minute he's suffocating people in cars and stuff like that. He doesn't waste any time here. Now, this is a movie that's only 85 minutes long, but it is always so fun. It is so fast paced, and Chucky, played by Brad Dourif, just makes it to be such an entertaining time. I never get bored watching this movie. I can throw it on anytime. I love Chucky in this. He's got some of the greatest dialogue. He's got some great kills. He's just a nasty little bastard. I love that moment where he says, "Shut up and drive before I kick your fucking teeth in." But yeah, it's also got a great protagonist looking over Andy in this one. And Kyle, probably my favourite character out of the entire franchise, even though she only really appeared in this movie. I mean, she made little cameos in other ones, but she was only really in this one, mostly. And I think she's an awesome character, I really do. And it's got a great third act. You know, the third act in the toy factory where Chucky's kind of in his little kingdom there, and it feels like he's so powerful and stuff. Fantastic. One of the best third acts in horror movie history, in my opinion. Love this movie to death. Always have, always will. One of the very first horror movies I watched, and the best in the franchise. That is Child's Play 2. Coming in number 2 is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. The first horror movie I watched all the way through. That is the reason I'm sitting here. I adore this movie. It is a film that is so important to me, and I can just throw it on anytime. I love this film. We've got Freddy with a great balance of comedic and darkness here. Like, the jokes that he's telling this movie, they're funny, but they're dark and got a sinister side to them. You know, you shouldn't really laugh. It's the kind of the perfect comedic dark tone that Freddy should have. It's a shame after this he went too comedic, more like a TV presenter. But in this one, they absolutely nailed the feel of Freddy. Robert Englund is awesome in this. And this time we see a bunch of characters who are living in Elm Street, all dreaming about the same Freddy character, and they end up in a mental hospital, and they all have to do these little talks together and try and discuss their dreams, basically. But you really do latch on to these characters because they're all struggling, and lots of the adults on the outside don't really believe them. But we do have Heather Langenkamp coming back here to try and help these kids, and she's the one who can basically understand what they're going through. I think it's a cool little story. And we've got some of the best Freddy kills in the entire franchise here with, you know, the puppetry trick where he's making Philip walk down the corridor with his veins coming out and stuff. Oh my God, I'm just cringing talking about it right now. We've got Jennifer's hair going through the TV screen, ready for prime time, bitch. And an awesome third act where we see Kincaid and Taron and stuff try and take Freddy on. Like I said, great bunch of characters, great kills, great Freddy, great setting. I absolutely love this movie to death, and it's probably in my top 10 horror movies of all time. That is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Coming in number 1, though, is Dawn of the Dead. Now, this is possibly, in fact, for me, it is the greatest zombie movie of all time. George A. Romero obviously had a hit with Night of the Living Dead, and this is his follow-up, of course, where zombies have taken over the world, basically. And we see these 4 characters who basically land this helicopter in a shopping mall, and the shopping mall is deserted. And this is where they decide to hole up and live during this zombie outbreak. But it's probably one of the best locations ever put in a horror movie, because these characters have just got all these stores and stuff at their fingertips. And it's just so fun to see them running around. basically making a little home for themselves here and taking out the zombies as they do it. And everything seems very comfortable at first, but obviously more people want a piece of that pie, and we see motorcycle gangs trying to infiltrate it, and the zombies are the least of the problems and stuff. But yeah, there's some great gore in here. Some guy who straps himself to the blood pressure machine, one of the most idiotic choices I've ever seen in a horror movie, but seeing him get torn to shreds is great to see. Also, we've got great characters here. I love all four main characters in this movie. Flyboy, Ken Faree's character, who's got some great lines of dialogue in this movie. You really do just latch on to them and really root for them and want them to succeed, basically. But the shopping mall is the main character of this film. It's a great location and inspired many other things, like Dead Rising, of course, the video game, where you run around the mall and stuff. I love this film. It is fantastic. It's George A. Romero's masterpiece and in my top 5 horror movies of all time. So I got to put it number 1 on this list. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this top 15 horror sequels. Yeah, I really wanted to put Dr. Sleep in here. I rewatched it again for the first time since the cinema the other day, and I just didn't. I loved it. It just didn't make the list. But maybe on another rewatch or something, it might make it. But fantastic movie. There was a couple of others I wanted to put in here as well. Paranormal Activity 2. But yeah, I can only do 15, guys, and that is already more than 10 what I usually do. So what are your favourite horror sequels? Please do let me know in the comments down below, guys. I'll get back to you all, I promise. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Are there some in here where you're scratching your head thinking, how did that get in there? Please do let me know. If horror is your sort of thing, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if you want more horror top 10s lists. I'll leave them in the link down below. Thanks so much, guys. You take care, and I'll see you all in the next video.